Hey everyone, welcome back to Hong Kong Ghost Stories. It's summer now, and for some of you, that means it's travel season. Maybe you're headed overseas, exploring ancient temples, golden beaches, or the bustling night markets of Southeast Asia. And of course, what's a trip without a souvenir, right? A little trinket, maybe something that just calls out to you from a dusty corner shop. But what if I told you that not every souvenir is meant to be taken home? Especially in countries where beliefs about spirits and the supernatural run deep, grabbing the wrong object could bring something else back with you. Tonight's story is about a Hong Kong traveler who made exactly that mistake. A young guy, let's call him Andy. He was in his early 30s, had just gotten a promotion, and decided to celebrate with a week-long vacation in northern Thailand, in the ancient city of Chiang Mai. Andy was pragmatic, believed in luck, but not really in ghosts. He was looking for something authentic, an item with a real history, a piece of the mysterious East. Like many, he decided to stray from the standard tourist route. During one of his tuk-tuk rides, he got talking to his driver, a man named Somchai. Somchai turned out to be a local who knew many hidden, non-touristy spots in the area. He told Andy that if he wanted true Thai fortune, he should buy an amulet related to the legendary warrior and sorcerer, Khun Phaen. Legend claimed that such an amulet would grant its owner irresistible charm, success with women, and unheard-of financial fortune. Andy, of course, was skeptical, but the idea of success magic intrigued him. Somchai took him to the back alleys of an old night market, one that catered mostly to locals. In one cramped stall, filled with dusty old items of folk magic, ancient amulets, and herbs, Andy saw something that immediately drew his attention: a small, squatting wooden doll. The doll was carved from very dark, old, almost black wood, smoothed by time and touch. Its eyes were inlaid with small, deep-set pieces of red, almost blood-colored stone. The stall owner, an old man with cloudy, almost blind eyes, said the figure was called a Phayao, a term from the ancient Khmer language meaning companion or comrade of Khun Phaen. The old man was persistent, his words sounding like a long-rehearsed incantation. This is a gift. A unique item, made according to ancient traditions. If you care for it, it will bring you incredible wealth and power. It will whisper the answers to you. He gave strict instructions, much like the shaman in the original story. Every night, Andy had to leave a small offering, some sweets or water, and, most importantly, recite a short phrase in Khmer. He repeated it slowly, almost chanting, until Andy memorized the guttural rhythm. Andy felt the same pull Ellen did. It's free, it's limited, it's unique. He got off lightly, giving the old man just a couple hundred baht for good luck, though the seller made it clear it wasn't a purchase, but rather a transfer of responsibility for the item. In Cantonese, there is a saying, "Don't be greedy for small benefits." Andy ignored that quiet inner warning. He tucked the doll into his backpack, feeling incredibly lucky to possess a secret treasure. Andy returned to Hong Kong. He placed the Phayao on his nightstand and, with a touch of irony, began performing the ritual, a little water and the memorized, guttural chant. At first, things were amazing. His luck truly soared. He won a small sum on the races, and his project at work was suddenly a hit. Andy's charisma increased. He became more assertive, even aggressive. His face, however, began to look haggard and pale, as if he were losing vital energy. And then, like Ellen, he began to hear a voice in his head. At first, it was a faint whisper, as if someone were sitting right on his right shoulder. The voice spoke in an unfamiliar language, but Andy, to his horror, understood it. The voice advised him on how to get more money, how to manipulate colleagues, and how to attract women. Night after night, the whisper grew louder and more demanding. Andy started waking up between 3 and 4 a.m., the very spirit hour, when the veil between worlds thins. He would wake, not from a nightmare, but from the feeling that his hand was involuntarily reaching for the doll, and his lips were chanting a different, longer, more threatening incantation. Soon, Andy began having a nightmare. A recurring one. He saw himself, but not as himself, but as a man in old village clothes, his face contorted by malice and rage. This man was doing something horrific. He was beating and burying something wrapped in cloth in a humid, dense forest. Andy felt a primal rage and animal fear that were not his own. After these nightmares, he would wake up exhausted and plagued by guilt. His personality began to shift. He became increasingly greedy, cruel, and indifferent, completely following the orders of the voice that seemed to be controlling his every decision. Andy finally realized that the doll was enslaving him. He tried to get rid of it. He threw it into the trash can, but the next morning, the Phayao stood in the exact same spot on his nightstand, and he heard loud, menacing laughter echoing in his bathroom. The voice began to scream, and the nightmares completely consumed his consciousness, granting him no rest. He saw the man from his dream commit murder for money and hide the body. In despair, he contacted Somchai, the tuk-tuk driver. The driver, upon hearing about the Phayao and the dreams, fearfully hung up the phone. But before he did, he managed to shout, "You took a Thai Frey, a spirit of the stillborn. He was a companion until he was used for murder. Now he wants your life." In Thai folk magic, Phayao can be associated with Tai Hong Frey, spirits of those who died violently. In this case, it was the spirit of a child that a shaman, perhaps, had bound to the doll after its violent death at the hands of the man in Andy's dream, to create a powerful amulet. The spirit granted wealth but demanded the owner's life force and, ultimately, their body. In the final stage of the nightmare, Andy saw the man in his hut commit suicide out of horror and guilt, hanging himself with a rope. This was the price for using the spirit. Andy realized his own inevitable end. He bought a ticket to fly back to Thailand for help, but, like Ellen, he never made it to the airport. On the day of his scheduled flight, neighbors heard a wild, childish wailing that quickly turned into a loud, male scream. When the police broke down the door, they found Andy. He had not jumped out the window. He was lying on the floor with a horrific mark on his neck, like a burn or the indent of a tightrope. Next to him, on the nightstand, stood the wooden doll Phayao. It looked absolutely brand new, and the red stones in its eyes were glowing brightly, as if fire had ignited within them. The spirit of the murderer, imprisoned in the doll, did not allow Andy to die a natural death so that his soul would also become a Thai Frey, bound to the object and ready to be passed on to the next greedy victim. Andy didn't just die. He became part of the amulet. So what exactly happened to Andy? He, like Ellen, was linked to a spirit through an object, the Phayao. But this was not just a possession, it was a complete soul replacement and absorption. In Thailand, especially in the Lanna region, there is a practice of creating powerful talismans using Frey, the potent energy of spirits who died violent or sudden deaths. These spirits are powerful but extremely dangerous. They seek ways to return to the world of the living. Andy's nightmare was a spiritual loop. He relived the life of the previous owner, who likely used the doll for crimes, murder, and was then forced to pay for it with his own life, suicide. Andy, by accepting the doll, became the next in this cycle. The voice was the spirit's tool of control, and the suicide was the final requirement to bind Andy's soul to the doll, replenishing its power. The red stones that glowed after his death symbolized that the spirit successfully consumed Andy's soul. Andy's death was an exact replication of the suicide he saw in the nightmare. This confirms that it was a complete spiritual takeover and the fulfillment of the curse, which is now ready to move on to the next unsuspecting, greedy victim. So, what exactly happened to Andy? He, like Ellen, was linked to a spirit through an object, the Phayao. But this was not just a possession, it was a complete soul replacement and absorption. In Thailand, especially in the Lanna region, there is a practice of creating powerful talismans using Frey, the potent energy of spirits who died violent or sudden deaths. These spirits are powerful but extremely dangerous. They seek ways to return to the world of the living. Andy's nightmare was a spiritual loop. He relived the life of the previous owner, who likely used the doll for crimes, murder, and was then forced to pay for it with his own life, suicide. Andy, by accepting the doll, became the next in this cycle. The voice was the spirit's tool of control, and the suicide was the final requirement to bind Andy's soul to the doll, replenishing its power. The red stones that glowed after his death symbolized that the spirit successfully consumed Andy's soul. Andy's death was an exact replication of the suicide he saw in the nightmare. This confirms that it was a complete spiritual takeover and the fulfillment of the curse, which is now ready to move on to the next unsuspecting, greedy victim. Remember that in Asia, many souvenirs are not just wood or stone. They are charged vessels. And if you are given such a gift in the back alleys of a market, know this: you are likely not the first owner, and you certainly won't be the last. Remember that in Asia, many souvenirs are not just wood or stone. They are charged vessels. And if you are given such a gift in the back alleys of a market, know this: you are likely not the first owner, and you certainly won't be the last. Which other Asian spirits should we cover in this series? Drop your suggestions in the comments, and whichever one gets the most love might just crawl into the spotlight in a future episode. Thanks for watching. And remember, if you hear a strange croaking sound in the middle of the night, don't panic. It's probably just your pipes. Or maybe it isn't. Sweet dreams. I hope you enjoyed these stories. If you like them and want to listen to more, feel free to subscribe and put on your notifications. I upload almost every day.